Hey folks, Santino Pino here, and the Bureau of Prisons is back in the headlines. Now, today's article comes from something called the Lisa Foundation, and I want to say this in a way that doesn't look like it's making anybody look like they're trying to do something bad. Okay? Usually, any news article that you find from like a foundation, albeit all news is skewed and it leaning left or right at any given time. But when you find a lot of foundation or organization or charity news articles, they are leaning towards the narrative or the result that they are pushing. Okay. So this article is bringing to light some things, but also let's talk about why those things probably won't work out and actually didn't because this case has already been dismissed. So Loper Bright may be coming for BOP time credit rules an update in April 2026. And this, like I said, I just came across this today and it's dated today. So according to the website, the Lisa Foundation posts news and comment on federal justice issues focused primarily on trial and post-conviction matters, legislative initiatives, and sentencing issues. So Loper Bright to the rescue on FSA rules. So R. Benson, who they call George, was sentenced in December of 2020, but he was not transferred to his designated Bureau of Prisons facility for 15 months. After that, instead, staying in a county lockup when George finally got to his designated federal prison, the BOP administrated his individualized risk and needs assessment, and he started earning FSA credits. Okay, so the FSA credits, this is the most important part about what we're going to talk about today before we get any deeper into the story. Okay, part of the requirements to earn FSA credits, now this is inmate stuff. Okay, part of the requirements to earn FSA credits is that you need to complete your individualized risk and needs assessment. Okay, First Step Act. Its primary mission really is reentry, right? Getting inmates back on the street. So there are lots of programs in prisons designed to help with reentry. But not all those programs, and this is the most important thing, not all of those programs help everyone in their individual needs. And so let's say and you know what? I've met inmates that had no drug problems that have never taken drugs, right? So if you take a drug program, you're probably going to pass it with flying colors. It's going to be very, very easy for you, but it doesn't help with your reentry because you never had a drug problem. So it would not be into your individualized risk and needs assessment. So no, you should not get points for that, right? Because it's part of your individualized program. You have to complete an individual program before you earn FSA credits. That's like rule number one. Okay, let's continue in the article. George asked for credits for his 15 post sentence months he spent in county where according to him he participated in program or productive activities which should earn him First Step Act time credits. These credits can be applied to shave up to a year off your prison sentence and any excess credits earned beyond that by a prisoner more halfway house and home confinement at the end of the sentence. Okay, great. All right. Programs, you got some wiggle room and release date, so you have some motivation to complete said programs, right? But let's break down this article real quick. Okay. So when you look right here, where was it? 15 months post sentence, where according to him, so number one, according to him, I'm going to tell you right, I have met uh, very, very polite inmates. I have never in my career, I worked in prison for 14 years. I have never met an inmate that didn't lie to me. Okay? Never. Um, where according to him, so in this case, there's a good chance, not going to say that this is a possibility, but it's a good chance or that he might be embellishing some of this stuff. But he participated in programming. Okay, programming. We can have that discussion. Productive activities are not programs. Okay. Just because you volunteered to do some stuff in prison, unless it's actually listed in the First Step Act, you don't get any credits for that. So now we just have to focus on programming. So now he's completing programming. He hasn't completed a BOP assessment yet because you don't get that till you get to a BOP facility. So he's picking his own programs, right? He's just, I feel like taking this today. Okay. And that's just not how it works. It's just not how it works. It's very clear how it works. And the problem that we find is a lot of people just don't want to, for whatever reason, operate in the way that it needs to be. Like in a debunking video I did that wasn't related to the BOP, the guy was having a billing issue at a gym that he was going to, and he was mad that he couldn't just take cash out of his pocket to pay for his membership. They wanted banking information, they wanted billing information. Well, here's the thing: it's a very large corporate gym. You can't tell them how you want to pay them. They only have three options. You need to have you have to have a credit card for billing. You have to have a bank account for billing, or with one of those other two, you can pay for your year membership. But there was no option to pay with cash at the register at the front. They don't make that an option. He was mad about that. No, but a company decides that. And just to backtrack on that for a second, the reason that a lot of businesses are moving away from cash is because you actually need extra security. Like it costs a lot of money to be able to take cash at a business. I have a business. I have a storefront location. I don't take cash. Okay. And the reason is because I would need so much more security and licenses and all that stuff in order just to have cash. And I don't want to do that. So and plus the companies I'm affiliated with don't allow it anyway. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't. I have to work within the system. All right. So back to this. Why do I give that as an example? Because he did his own programs. He picked his own programs. And you know what? I'll even go to the extreme and say maybe he was working in his 15 months that he had a county lockup. There could have been a caseworker or counselor there that helped him select programs. But what hasn't he done yet? He hasn't done a BOP risk and needs assessment. So, but because Benson did not receive the individualized assessment of needs that the First Step requires from the BOP to perform on every prisoner in order to match him or her with the most effective programs, after he completed 15 months of programs, the BOP refused to give him any credits for the programs he had taken before reaching his designated prison. And the example I thought of when I read that paragraph was it's real simple. You all remember when you got your driver's license, right? Your dad probably driving you around in the car. My dad used to drive me around an empty mall parking lot. No, no, no. That was my brother. My dad used to drive me around the cemetery. Right, a little different. Just that parking lot wasn't available. It would have been a mall parking lot too. Don't worry. But my dad would let me drive around a cemetery, and I mean, lots of turns, lots of tight roads. It might be weird to you, but it actually helped. Um, None of that driving time counted towards my license. It made me more proficient, and I passed my driving test the first try because of all that work that I did. It helped making me proficient. And it's just one of those things that I get that a lot of people want everything they do to count for something, but in everything, you do have prep work, right? When you're cooking, you have prep work. I was at the gym today. I had my heavy leg day today. I go through a lot of prep even before I get to my exercises, right? Everything has prep. And if anything, county time, where you don't spend a lot of time for the most part, where not a lot of programs are generally offered at county lockups, that's your prep time for your longer sentence that you're going to serve at a state or federal facility. So Benson filed a pro se, so on his own, requesting the BOP be ordered to award him about 150 FSA credits he said he earned for programs completed while at the county jail. That's not true because FSA credits have to do with BOP programs after a needs assessment. Now, now the right request would be, hey, I completed these programs, but there's another catch we're going to talk about. Okay, without conducting discovery or requiring a response from the government, the district court dismissed the petition because he did not complete a risk assessment. Okay, so last week, the Fourth Circuit vacated the decision and sent the case back to the district court. While it would be easy to read too much into the circuit's ruling, two holdings are significant. First, George's needs assessment, the BOP calculated that he was at medium risk for recidivism under the pattern system. Medium risk inmates can earn FSA credits, but normally cannot use them until their recidivism risk falls to lower minimum. So there's another key right there, another trigger in this that has nothing to do with programs. Okay. Medium risk inmates can earn FSA credits, but normally cannot use them until the recidivism risk falls to low or minimum. The government argued that since George couldn't use any of the credits he wanted awarded him, he had no standing to bring the habeas corpus standing in a constitutional concept. A petitioner who has nothing at stake in the suit lacks standing to bring the action. The case is dismissed as moot. For a controversy to be moot, the fourth held it must lack at least one of the three required elements of Article 3 standing. One, injury in fact. Two, causation. Or three, redressability. Because recidivism levels can change with prisoners' age and completion of programs, among other reasons, the circuit court ruled that Benson had a reasonable chance of being able to use his FSA credits in the future. What's more is that the FSA lets medium and high risk inmates petition to be transferred to pre-release custody or supervised release by the warden of the prison based on determinants. That's the halfway house stuff we've talked about on this channel before. So Benson had a chance of using credits, even if it was not a very strong chance, right? It's the opposite of strong. Okay, it's what we would call a non-zero chance, right? Like playing the lottery. I mean, I could play, but I have a non-zero chance of winning, right? It's not zero, it's just non-zero. It's probably as close to zero as actually mathematically possible. And I love what a friend of mine said like 10 years ago about the lottery, and I've repeated it since. The lottery is just a tax on people that are bad at math. On the merits of Benson's claim, the BOP argued on appeal that the statute requires successful participation in programs to earn FSA credits, and its rule requires that successful participation in programs must include a prior determination by BOP staff that the programs or productive activities have been recommended. Based on the inmate's individualized risk and needs assessment, because George was not evaluated until he reached the prison, the agency argued nothing he did while in county lockup could count. The BOP argued that its rule was a reasonable interpretation of the statute, and thus the court had to accept the BOP's interpretation under the well-known doctrine. Okay, it's a lot of words, but let's go over here, okay? The primary barrier was not the programs themselves. The BOP regulation that links successful participation into individual risk and needs assessment. Okay, key factors in Georgia's credits. So program eligibility. While the specific names of his programs at the White Detention Center are not listed in court documents, they were described as evidence-based recidivism reduction, EBRR programs. If these match the BOP's approved list of mandated needs, they would typically qualify for First Step Act. Okay, that's probably correct. And you know what? There's probably a way or an argument where they could get FSA credits for some of their county programs. And if there's not, there's not. Okay, they don't have to. This is a request thing. But again, you need to have your individual risk needs assessment before you can start earning FSA credits. Now, if you're trying to go back post assessment and get some credit, I don't know the BOP standing on that because the First Step Act came in many, many, many years after I left the BOP. But the catch-22, the BOP argued that even if George took approved programs, they didn't count because his assessment hadn't happened yet. Their rule states that the credits are only earned for activities recommended after an assessment determines a prisoner's specific needs. So again, the program is very clear. This is not the BOP making an individual decision about this one inmate. The program is very clear. Nothing counts until you take an assessment. So the impact of an earlier, and so I asked ChatGPT, or I asked this AI, it's not ChatGPT, it's Google, which is the Atari of AI. I asked it just if he had taken his BOP needs assessment before, but took the same programs, would any of them have counted? Impact of earlier assessment. So had the assessment occurred first, the BOP would have officially recommended those programs to address his specific criminogenic needs. In that scenario, his participation would have met the agency's strict definition of successful participation, and the credits would have been applied as they were earned. But that's if if they even would allow that, and if the programs met the needs in the FSA, which they could be called the same thing but completely different programs. Like I have two apps on my phone named Blink. Okay, they do completely different things. They're not related to each other, but they're both called Blink. Okay, you could take, you know, detention drug program at both of those, but they could be completely different programs, right? And not meet the FSA needs. These are not FSA programs. Now, could someone go back where, like when you were in college and you wanted to transfer credits to see if those credits qualify? You remember those days? Nobody takes classes that don't transfer anymore, but there used to be a day that when people went to college, the main question you asked about every credit class was, do these transfer? Because a lot of times back in, when I was very, very young and going to college, it was you might get some education at different colleges, but you'll graduate from a different one. Now we're kind of in an era where everybody just, they go to their school and they stay there for, 2, 4, 6 years, right? And complete their college. So that's where that one is. Let's finish the article real quick, okay? George has a lot of hurdles to cross back in district court. Now, here's the thing: he doesn't actually. The case has been dismissed. Okay, so this is the Lisa Foundation stepping in, and here's the thing: don't act like I'm an anti-inmate guy, because let's say they do take it to court, and let's say it leads to a decision where the BOP now will have some transferable FSA credits from county. I mean, that's good for everybody. It really is. Maybe not a lot of them, but some. But they need to evaluate those programs to make sure they transfer. But you have to remember this, and this is the final point I make today. Okay. Those county programs need to meet every single one of the requirements. So, like, let's say that ABC class in the FSA program, one class will just, in this example, it's an ABC class, right? In this class, it has 10 points that make it qualified for FSA credits. But the county one only hit 9 of the points. It can't count. You can't lower the bar. They need all of their programming based on their risk and needs assessment. So, it's a great conversation to start, and maybe now bringing some regulation to some of the programs at county for inmates that are going to eventually transfer to the BOP. Maybe having some programs for those post sentence but pre-housed BOP inmates that are still sitting at county, where there could be some federal programs that would qualify for FSA in the future, where they could go and backtrack and get credit. That sounds like a great idea. Then the answer is in the middle. The answer isn't give them all the credit. The answer isn't give them zero credit. The answer is let's have a regulated program created by somebody. And who knows, maybe this case is what brings that to light. Maybe this case is the one that makes that happen. So, all right, folks, thank you for sticking around for this one. As always, I cover BOP headlines here in my long form content, fitness in my short form content, in my shorts and short videos, not my shorts. I'm actually wearing pants right now. Um, if you have segue, if you have any TSP questions, give me a call. My phone number will flash on the screen. Give me a like and a subscribe. Really helps me out. Share this with your other BOP staff if you think that they get some knowledge out of it. Thank you for sticking around. I'll see you in the next video.